In addition to our schools, we have programs for our families and first-time home buyer, in tax preparation, in helping low-income families get educated and finding better jobs, and a bunch of other really good stuff. I also have Oren Creative, which is a graphic design firm, consulting firm, and we do mostly work for nonprofits and local businesses. But today I want to talk about Community Action Project. We, as a nonprofit, don't have the budget to hire big giant agency from New York to help us do all of our branding. Even though we do have a marketing staff, we don't all pay ourselves $100,000 salaries and drive BMWs and have nice fancy suits. We do have to watch our budget. And every dollar that we don't spend on overhead is a dollar that we can spend furthering our mission. So that's kind of the mindset behind bootstrapping. For those of you who were at my talk last year, I kind of introduced the concept of bootstrapping not as, it doesn't mean don't spend money. It means spend your money as wisely as you possibly can. And so this is one of my slides from last year where I defined bootstrapping as starting a business with no outside funding, which is kind of the traditional definition. And my own little take on it would be running a business on as little money as possible, spending money wisely, only on the things that are going to directly contribute to launching and maintaining your product. So the question to answer is, what's the least amount of money I need to launch a product and use it in the real world? So modified that for nonprofits, seeing as that I'm now in the nonprofit sector, is attempt as much as you possibly can to spend money on the things that are directly contributing to your mission. And so that your guiding force becomes, again, what's the least amount of money that I need to run the organization in such a way that I'm maximizing the amount of money that I'm spending furthering my mission. Looking at that from a design perspective, traditionally the organization just sort of, everybody was a designer. So everybody that had to get out a postcard, everybody that had to get out a flyer to parents, everybody that had to get out an email or put something on a website just kind of did it on their own. And so as you can imagine, there were, logos with drop shadows, logos with funny, lines around it, pink logos, logos with butterflies and rainbows, and every single color you can possibly imagine. And so as an organization, we didn't look cohesive. We didn't look like we were one big happy family. We looked schizophrenic and crazy. So design is really about not just making things look pretty. Design answers the question, what experience do you want your clients to have? You can barely read that. But I'll put my talk out there for anybody who wants to grab it later on. And even a larger question than design is branding. Those of you who have heard me talk in the past, hear me keep bringing this phrase up, is that markets are conversations, which comes from the Clue Train Manifesto way, way, way a long time ago in the early 90s when the internet first came out. And so if markets are conversations, branding to that conversation. It includes everything you control. It includes everything you don't control. A lot of times you can't control what mindset your clients are in when they come to you, where they are in their lives when they come to you. You can't sometimes control the environment that you're in or government regulation, or there's any one of a number of things that you can't control. So branding also talks about how you deal in those situations. Branding answers the question, who are you? What do you want your clients to tell you? What do you want to tell them? So it's a two-way conversation. What dialogue do you want to have? Where are these conversations happening? Not necessarily physically where, but again, where in their life, where in their mindset. For us, It's families who are in a difficult situation, families who are in a low-income situation. They may have lost their job or are working, but they don't make enough to make ends meet a lot of times. And how do you raise your kids on that? You know, those are difficult conversations to have. So, you know, our brand needs to take that into consideration. When people think about schools, when people think about a classroom, branding is a part of that. What do we want our classrooms to look like? What do we want our schools to look like? Do we want them to look like this, or do we want them to look like this? There's a huge difference in what the family, what the child experiences when they come to us in our space. And so the first thing that we did at CAP is we created a branding guide. A branding guide provided us with structure, it provided us with consistency, and it provided us with some knowledge that we could spread throughout the organization. So if I get hit by a bus, the organization knows its brand, it knows what it's doing, it knows what guidelines to follow, no matter who's in my position, or you know, no matter what the team, the marketing team or the branding team looks like, it still carries on, you know, well beyond me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the rebranding we did at CAP. The first thing we had to do is clean up our logo. This is what our logo used to be. It used to be all over the place and crazy. And you had that dripping thing below the A that just really bothered me a lot. I don't know quite what they were trying to communicate, but yeah, it was a mess. So we didn't do a whole lot of changes, but we cleaned it up and we made it consistent. And we gave ourselves the helping families succeed, because that's what we, at our heart, that was really what we were all about. And we believe that helping families succeed comes from the education that we're giving to those kids. Education as a way out of poverty, as a way out of being in this low-income situation. We put Tulsa on our name because there are a lot of the action projects all over the country, but we are unique to Tulsa. We're our own program, and so we wanted to brand ourselves as part of the community. And we reach about a third, maybe a little bit more than a third of our families are Hispanic. And so we wanted something that would easily translate into both languages, would easily be branded into both languages, and would easily speak to them in their language as well. The second thing that we did was standardize our fonts. So, and that's one of the most affordable but most powerful things you can do when you're considering branding is, what are the fonts that you're going to use? It's something that a lot of people overlook. A lot of people just say, oh, just Windows, Microsoft Office, default fonts, just go with it. And if you want something creative, just make it in Papyrus, and it'll be fun and creative, and, you know, yeah, no. We put an end to that. We put an end to Comic Sans forever. And so, you know, again, this is kind of what we used to look like. And this is what we look like now. So very clean, very open. It doesn't take a whole lot to look more professional. You just have to be consistent. And so everything that we put out now uses the same two fonts. The top for our sort of headline, we use Shiny Negative. And it has that sort of, you can't really see it very well, but it has that sort of friendly, curvy look to it that says we're in early childhood education, but it's not childlike. We're not drawing crayons. We're a professional organization that provides a professional service. So we kind of wanted to bridge those two lines. For all of our body text on anything and everything we do, we use Myriad Pro, which is a super clean, super easy font to use. And we, made sure that IT had those two fonts installed on every single computer throughout the employees. They kind of yelled at us at first. But, you know, it was something that, again, was super affordable to do, and keeping that consistency made us look a whole lot better. Step 3, we built a set of colors that the organization could use. So again, you know, the pink and purple butterflies, not us. These colors we could get behind and we could use, and it would be a color palette that would be flexible, but at the same time be consistent. And so arming ourselves with those 3 things: cleaned up logo, cleaned up colors, cleaned up fonts. We hired a professional photographer because we were using a lot of stock photos, and that's fine, but we wanted to tell our own stories. We wanted to connect on an individual basis. We wanted to, you saw the photo of our classrooms. We wanted photos of our classrooms, our buildings, our kids, our families. And really the only way to tell those stories is by getting the photos. So we spent a little bit of money to hire a professional photographer so that we had a collection of photos that we could use on flyers and ads and letters to parents and, you know, everything that we needed to get out. This is one of my favorite pictures. I don't know how well you can see it. But all the kids were supposed to be finger painting, and this little girl got the finger paint like all the way up past her elbows, and she was so proud of it, and it was awesome. And so, you know, giving ourselves that sort of toolkit, we were able to start putting it all together. And using simple shapes, using the colors and fonts from our branding guide, and keeping everything simple, very easy and clean and straightforward, so that when we got newsletters and information out to our parents, talking about the education that we're doing, you know, you can see, you know, those are the colors that we're using. Those are the fonts that we're using. Our own internal communication. So this is a strategic plan, one-pager for our strategic plan, and this went to every department. So again, it was real simple, real clean, but it used everything that we were doing. Our colors, our fonts, you know, and we can vary, and you can't see it very well, but the inside of those tables are just shades of that main color. So, you know, real simple in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or whatever it is, instead of having a plain white box, you can just say, all right, it's going to be the same color, but it's going to be 20% or 50%. And in the shapes that we're using for this, it was the same thing. We used the same color palette, but we sort of played with the opacity so that we had a broader range of stuff to work with, but it's still those same 4 main primary colors. And those of you who know color, primary colors are sort of associated with more childlike, more playful. So we wanted to make sure our photos and everything had again, that same color palette. And so when we went to do things like flyers, this was a poster for one of the programs that we do for Family and Children's Services. One of the ads that went into La Semana, which is a Spanish language newspaper. Here's a flyer for our tax program. An ad that went into This Land Press. And a poster that we designed for a reading program that we did with the library. So you can see everything has that sort of same look and feel, same consistency, same shapes that we're using, same colors that we're using, but we're sort of varying, you know, it's like variations on a theme. Each communication piece has its own purpose, has its own thing that we're doing, but you can throughout all of this, you can tell it's CAP. And that was one of the main challenges that we had before as an organization. And one of the things that we're trying to be consistent with now, so that anything that we put out there, be it an ad, a billboard, whatever it is, when you see it, you know it's coming from CAP. A few resources that we used for sort of visual and design tools. Nonprofits have the ability to sign up for a website called TechSoup, TechSoup, TechSoup.com, where if you're a nonprofit and you have your 501c3 and you have your letter that says, yes, we are a nonprofit, you turn that into them and you can get a discount on Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Microsoft Office, those sort of tools that you can use. As a nonprofit, especially as an educational organization, if you go to Adobe, you have the option of buying Creative Suite 6 for, $5 bajillion. But you can also sign up Adobe Creative Cloud, which I think for a personal license is something like $30 a month. If you're a nonprofit, it's $20 a month. So that tends to be a little bit more affordable, $20 a month versus $50 bajillion. For our color palette stuff, we use Color Lovers, C-O-L-O-U-R, the British spelling, lovers.com. That kind of helped us have a conversation about what colors we wanted to use and our color palette. We really used Pinterest a lot to sort of collect our thoughts and collect, when we saw something we liked and we wanted to model, or we saw the look of something that we really enjoyed and said, this fits us, we pinned it to Pinterest. We sort of created a board amongst our team and said, these are the kinds of things that we want to use to influence what we want our brand to be. And that was, Color Lovers is free, Pinterest is free. I really like a magazine called How, H-O-W. And it really talks a lot about graphic design and branding. Lately, they've had issues in their magazine about being an in-house designer, which I loved, of course, because I was transitioning from being a freelancer to now being an in-house designer. Lynda.com, L-Y-N-D-A, is a great resource for education. At, I think, again, something like $20 or $30 a month, you have access to every single video they have. So if you want to learn more about using InDesign or Illustrator or Photoshop, or even how to be a better photographer, how to be a better videographer, Lynda has some really great educational tools, videos, and worksheets and that kind of thing, and it's very affordable. For presentations, again, outside the organization, but also in and amongst ourselves, we started using Prezi, which a few of you have already started seeing some Prezi presentations, and they kind of add a little bit more than just your standard PowerPoint. We're starting to get into using YouTube and Vimeo more. Vimeo tends to be a little bit more artsy, for lack of a better word. And so we wanted that sort of more professional presence than just being on YouTube. So we opened up a Vimeo account and we started posting videos and have a couple of videos on there telling stories of families and stories of the kids and the parents of kids that are in our programs. As far as tech goes, there's some really affordable tools for nonprofits that we've enjoyed. Google Apps, they've gotten their free accounts, but their lowest level paid account is $50 per year per user. It sounds like a lot to pay just for an email account, but you have access to everything that they, once you sign up for Google under your domain, so for us it'd be captulsa.org. Once you sign up for email, you get so much more than just email. You get to be, you get their word processor, you get Google Docs, you get all the tools that they offer, and for that one low price, it tends to sort of balance out once you start taking advantage of some of the other tools that they offer. If you are a nonprofit, again, if you have that that 501c3 letter that you can deliver, Google offers $10,000 a month in Google AdSense ads. A huge help to a nonprofit that's trying to get their message out. I mentioned TechSoup. I gave a talk at the first Social Media Tulsa about WordPress. As a nonprofit, we absolutely love WordPress. It's free. 99% of the plugins are free. It's open source. We get to develop our own forms and pages and things that we need on top of WordPress, and all that's free. It's open source. You know, we just completely love it. From a website standpoint, we've had to pay far less for the size of site that we have and for the things that we're doing on it. It's been a really great tool. For forms, especially things like donation forms, all the forms that a nonprofit would need, I recommend a service called Wufoo. Wufoo, WUFOO.com. It really takes the sort of grunt work out of programming in those forms and having them collected into a usable spreadsheet. It kind of does all that for you. The base level account is free, but then they have other tiers on top of that where you have more features. One of their paid features is the ability to take payments with that form. So if you're selling anything online, or if you're collecting donations as a nonprofit, that sort of, I think it's either $5 or $10 a month to be able to collect payments on that form, through that form, becomes very useful. MailChimp, MailChimp, again, very powerful tool, and their base level account is free, and it gives you a ton of tools when it comes to email marketing. So you're able to set up your email marketing campaign, put all of your contacts into their contact database so that when you get ready to send out, be it a monthly email newsletter or a call for donations or sharing your, the video that we've created or sharing stuff online through email. It's a great way, and they've got tons of tools in terms of analytics, measuring how many people open the email. If you have any follow through, like for example, you're emailing out to your email subscribers a link to donate, they can track, this is how many people opened the email, this is how many people donated from that email, so you can really make some intelligent decisions based on that, and MailChimp gives it all to you for free, and it looks really nice. For collaboration, again, I'm mentioning Google Apps for the ability to have calendars, especially shareable calendars, and Google Drive to be able to share documents and you can even have teams be editors of that document so you can collaborate that way. If you need a little bit more than just sharing files, 37 Signals is a company that puts out a couple of different products. One is Basecamp for project management, especially project management where you have both internal, so people that are inside the organization, and external, maybe volunteers. Basecamp is a great way to manage projects, manage campaigns, collaborate on stuff, have discussions. They give you kind of a forum type tool, and they also give you file sharing. Highrise is another great tool. If you're coordinating with volunteers or having to contact donors on a regular basis, Highrise gives you the ability not just to have a contact list of all of your contacts and organize those into categories and tags and things like that, but also Highrise gives you the ability to remind yourself. So, if you have donors that you contact on a quarterly or a yearly basis, those reminders become, you can automate and organize all that type of stuff and don't have to, keep stuff on Post-it notes. Dropbox is also a great collaboration tool. You can invite people to a folder that you can then share. So if you're sharing documents, videos, that kind of thing, it becomes a really good tool for collaboration. And social media, and we've heard tons and tons of talks and have tons and tons of info. I even took about 5 pages worth of notes in the last talk about how social media can be used as a tool to engage your audience when you're a nonprofit. And the money that you're spending is on strategy and on sort of getting the tools in your toolbox. It's not necessarily on the distribution method. So we're not, as Community Action Project, we're not spending $10,000 on a billboard. We're spending, you know, a small amount of money to sort of get our strategy down, get our voice down, understand what our tone needs to be. Then we can go out as a team and say, okay, this is how we're going to post on Twitter, on Facebook, on Vimeo, on all the social network channels that we use. And really it's just a matter of keeping everything consistent, being as strategic as possible. The more strategic you are, the more consistent you are, the more efficient you can be with the dollars that you're spending. And that's really all I've got. Any questions? Yeah. It hasn't been easy. We have 600 employees, so as a nonprofit, we're rather large. One of the things that we did early on was be very open and honest about it, and had those difficult conversations. Hey, you know what? You're putting rainbows and butterflies on your flyer, and you're making our logo pink, and that's not us. That's not who we are and how we communicate. We then put together our own presentation that we used internally to talk to the heads of every department in the organization. We kind of gathered them all into one room and said, you know, as part of our the presentation was, we have a challenge as an organization where we're being inconsistent, where we're not speaking with a uniform voice, and this is how we're solving that. We're solving that by cleaning up our logo, by getting a standard set of fonts, by getting a standard set of colors, and giving that presentation to the heads of all our departments helped get everyone on board and helped everyone understand, okay, you're not just doing this to do it. You're doing it because you're solving a problem. And they understood the challenges that once we started talking about how we look as an organization, that sort of light bulb went on. Oh, okay, here's the problem that you're solving. Now we get why you're solving it. We still get some inconsistencies. After about 4 or 5 months, things start slipping a little bit. And so we sort of had to remind and have that conversation again. Okay, enough of the Comic Sans. We've got to use, So there is a sort of a little bit of that brand police that happens. But yeah, it's just a matter of having those conversations. And I think getting the heads of the departments on board was really important. It made that job a lot easier than I think it would have been otherwise. Other questions? Yeah. The question was, how many times have I given this talk before? Do I give it to everybody? Sure. Yeah, this is the first time I've given this talk. I usually give talks from a freelance designer perspective. But now I'm at an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday kind of gig. I'm bringing that experience in. So, and working with a nonprofit does have its sort of unique challenges. But those are the challenges that I wanted to have. I didn't really want to go work for a big dollar agency. I wanted to work for a nonprofit where I could see where my work was going and the impact that it was having. And so, yeah, it's new and it's fun and it's got its own set of quirks, but it's cool. Um, the question was how difficult a transition it's been. I don't think that I've well, I do a little bit of freelance work on the side, and so that's helped quite a bit. You know, I really only work a few hours a month on any freelance stuff that I do, and it's mostly for nonprofits. So I can, and the freelance work that I've done kind of always has been for nonprofits or government organizations or places like that. So it's blurry, but it's fine. And everybody on my team has sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, and that helps quite a bit. When the culture of the team itself, understands that everybody has their own little side gigs and their other side gig and their other side gig, stuff they sell on Etsy, and sort of has that that entrepreneurial spirit. So it really helps out a lot. Cool. Well, if anybody's interested in getting copies of the presentation, let me know, and I'll make sure you get it. Thanks a lot.